Hello crafty friends, welcome to day 21 of Die Cut December 2024. Today we're going to be using one die set to create 10 different cards. This is the die set that I'm going to be using today. I've chosen it because it's basic shapes. We've got nesting butterfly wings and bodies. So you don't necessarily need a nesting butterfly and body die set. You could just use any butterfly dies that you have. And it doesn't just have to be butterflies. You could adapt this to any kind of shape that you've got multiple sizes of. I'm also going to be delving into my box of backgrounds and bits. These are DIY pattern papers, bits of mixed media or inking or embossing that I've done and not yet used on a card. Some might have been just playing around, some might have been scraps and leftovers. But that's what I'm going to use today. I'm mainly going to be working on smooth white card today. If I use anything different, I'll let you know. For card number 1, I'm going to use my butterflies to cut apertures in my card panel. So I've arranged my butterflies fluttering up the page to the left hand side. So I've got a little bit of white space here, and I'll hold those down with some low tack post-it tape and run those through my die cutting machine. You can buy dies that cut multiple holes in pleasing arrangements. They're often called aperture dies, window dies, peekaboo dies. But you can also use individual dies to create pleasing arrangements of apertures in card panels. So I'll put those to one side because they'll come in useful. And what you can do is you can take some patterned paper or DIY mixed media paper and put it behind your apertures. You could put some foam in between to create a bit of dimension, a bit of lift, or you could stick them straight down. You could add shaker parts to this, so put some acetate behind and some foam, fill up the apertures with shaker elements like confetti or sequins and seal it up and you'll have a shaker card. So let's have a look at this one. I quite like capturing the different colours of this card. I'm going to draw around my card and chop it out and stick it on the back. I'll cut it ever so slightly smaller, so cutting inside the pencil marks, and that way I know it won't stick out from underneath the panel at the front. So I've got some foam tape, all the same depth on the back of my panel. So that's sitting on top there. If any bits of the bottom bit are sticking out, just tuck your scissors underneath the top panel and snip along, and then it won't be visible. And there you go, a DIY aperture card. What I'm going to do is off camera I will turn these into finished cards, so stick around to the end of the video and I will show you the complete finished card for each technique. Technique number 2 is we can use these dies to create our own chipboard or foam shapes. I'm going to take the rest of this bit of colourful paper and put it on some double-sided self-adhesive foam. This is fairly thin, only 1 millimetre or 2 thick. Now I can die cut from this using my butterfly shapes. If you haven't got ready-made double-sided adhesive foam, you can always take fun foam and add double-sided sticky to both sides of it. So that should have cut through the card and the foam. Sometimes it doesn't cut through the backing paper, but that's okay. And now we can put our DIY foam shapes onto our card. So we've got a nice little bit of lift and dimension there. If you'd rather not use foam and you'd rather stick with paper-based materials, you can do DIY chipboard. So take your shape, whatever it may be, and cut out multiple copies. So I've cut out this butterfly 4 times in white cardstock and once in patterned cardstock. And you can use tape or glue, whatever works for you, to stick them together. This is matte gel medium, and I'm using this because it's fairly slow drying compared to my other glue, and it just means I've got more time to wiggle these into perfect alignment. So that's 4 white butterfly die cuts layered one on top of the other. And now I've got my patterned paper die cut, which I can wiggle into perfect alignment as well. And I'll press that down. This is a bit of release paper from that sticky foam that I just used, and it'll just help me keep everything clean. So that's now a nice thick faux chipboard butterfly. You can obviously do as many layers as you like, and that could go on a card panel like that. And because it's got all that dimension, it's quite impactful, I think. For my third card, I'm going to make a DIY embossing folder and do some embossing. And I've made some chipboard shapes. These are only 2 die cuts thick, and I'm going to stick them just with a little bit of tape onto this piece of card. For this technique, I want to use the embossing sandwich. I've got my thick plate, a cutting plate, a rubber mat, then the paper I want to emboss with my butterfly paper, butterflies face down, and then it would be a cutting plate, or in my case a mat. And hopefully you can see that those butterflies have embossed into this card. So now I've got the mirror image if you look at it that way, or the same image if you look at it that way. So I could use this side or this side, and if I wanted, and if it withstood the process, I could use this as faux embossing. So this is a bit of a 2-for-1. You could keep this with your embossing folders and use it over and over again, or you could use it on a card front. For card number 4, I'm going to use my dies to create some stamps. So I've got a bit of fun foam here, and I'm going to die cut from that. It's got a bit of smooth white card here, and I'm going to take my butterflies, pick the nicest side, and I'll put a little bit, I don't need an awful lot, of stick glue on the back of these. And then hopefully I should be able to pick them up with this door. I'm going to ink these up with dye inks. Oops, that one's moved. Got something in it now, but never mind. I'll have to do. I managed to scratch that one somehow, I'm not sure how. I'm going to stamp those with cummerbund and just soften that edge a little bit. I'll stamp that down and see how that looks. Okay, I think we need a bit more effort in some areas. Let's just go another round with the cummerbund, but also bring in another colour. I'm going to add in some aquatine and sort of dab that around so it blends. I've got my pressing tool here, which I think will help. Yep, I'm liking that. And now I'm going to add a bit of Uptown. Okay, I think I might move this out of the way. Just going to use my finger dauber to add a little bit more ink in some places. And now I'm going to leave that to dry because it's very, very wet. Right, it is the next day, so this has been drying overnight. They're not perfect stamped impressions, but I like them, and that's what counts. What I'm going to do is stamp over these again with the same stamp, but I'm going to emboss it first, or emboss them rather. So here are my foam shapes. I'm going to put them in this embossing folder. It's a swirly whirly pattern, so it really doesn't matter what the orientation is, as long as each butterfly gets some pattern. So I hope you can see that there's some pattern embossed on there. And I'm going to put these back over where they were, but offset them slightly. I'll pick them up with the door again, and I'll treat this with talcum powder to remove, oops, I've moved it, never mind, any lingering moisture or static or grease. And now I'm going to lightly press some embossing ink onto these. The impressions made by the embossing folder aren't particularly deep, so this isn't going to be perfect again, but that's okay. I will use my press tool and then just see how that looks. So I've got some superfine silver here, embossing powder, and I've got plenty up here on these two butterflies, not much down here, so I'll do those again once I've heat set the top. This card is definitely going to have a distressed, grungy vibe. I will brush this off here because I'm never going to be able to match the partial embossing on the bottom butterflies. So we'll do the bottom two afresh. So I rather like that, definitely grungy. So I'll try again with the bottom two. Great, that's worked really well this time. Just get off any bits that I don't want. I'm very happy with that. We've got some lovely ethereal silver, almost gossamer butterflies on top of that quite bold background, which tones everything down and brings in a bit of shimmer and shine. So that's another background finished. For card number 5, I'm going to create a stencil using this die. This is the second largest. So first up, I'm going to use the stencil. So I've cut it out of card and I'm going to put it on another piece of card and just put a little bit of tape at either end to hold them together. And I've got 3 Distress Oxide, Festive Berries, which is a red, Squeeze Lemonade, which is a yellow, and Blue Salty Ocean. I'm going to blend on my stencil and through the aperture with these 3 colours. So I've blended all those inks through the aperture, and there we have a beautiful blended butterfly with all the colours of the rainbow to some degree. We've got red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo and violet. But now I've also got this, and I can finish this by just blending on some more ink all the way to the edges. Going to pop a bit of Post-it on my finger so I can hold that without getting fingerprints in my blending. So there's 2 results from 1 stencil. We also cut this bit out and we can use this as a mask. I've got some Post-it tape here which I'm going to fold round on itself so it acts like low-tack double-sided sticky tape. And I'm going to put that there, I think, like that. And then I'm going to take what's left on my brush. We'll just see how this looks. I might add a bit more ink, I'm not sure yet. I think I'll get the primary colours down first and then try and blend the secondary colours, and then some blue. Now I'll just get that red and blue to mix and mingle. Quite a dull purple, that one, a dull violet. So depending on the reds, yellows and blues that you choose, you'll get different secondary colours. There'll all be greens, oranges and purples. They'll be more or less vibrant It all depends on the pigments and dyes that are in the inks that you use. Let's lift that off. That should come away without tearing the paper. So now I've got a colourful butterfly and a white butterfly on a colourful background. So with one die cut and 3 pieces of paper, we've got 4 elements that we could use. For card number 6, we're going to make some DIY frames. So I've got my large butterfly, and then the next size down, I'm going to put that in there as centrally as I can. I'm going to use this bit of paper from my box of backgrounds and bits. It's just big enough to fit over the butterflies. Before I cut them out though, I'm going to pop it on some foam. I've got my butterflies ready to die cut, and I want to pop my card on top. I like that. Is that right? Yes, it is. And I'll run that through my Cuttlebug. I'll carefully remove the post-it tape and the dies, because they've cut through nicely, but not cut through the backing paper, so that's okay. Before I take those out, I want to jazz that up a bit, add a little bit of bling, and I'm just thinking of a little bit of gold splatter. So that's looking extra pretty now. I can take those out. Marking here the middle of the card, so I know what I'm aiming for. And I've popped most of the butterfly back on this bit of release paper. That way, with any luck, I'll be able to get it stuck down roughly in the middle without getting myself stuck to the butterfly. I'm going to skip this one here, but get the size down from it and pop that in the middle. And then I'm going to take the teeny tiny one from the middle and my tweezers, because it's going to be fiddly, and get that stuck down there. So that is quite pretty. I really like that. And all you need on that is literally a sentiment. And you've also got some leftovers here. You've got 2 more. So you could do something with a different colour and intersperse those with that. You could put some up on foam like these or down flat. The world's your oyster, really. For card number 7, I'm going to use a cover plate die with my butterflies. I've got a bit of background here. This was made by just pressing some Catherine Pooler mini ink pads in various shades of green on a bit of card. And here's some pearlised cardstock. I'm really having trouble with the words today. Before I die cut this though, with the cover plate die, I'm going to add some double-sided adhesive to the back. This will just make my life easier down the road when I want to do the sticking down. So I'm going to cut this with my electronic die cutting machine, because it's going to give me the best cut with such an intricate big die. So that's cut through really well, but because it's double-sided sticky on the back, a lot of the little bits haven't popped out. So I'm going to pop it on the bit that I'm going to stick it down to eventually, just to make it easier to handle, but I'm not pressing it down. And this is going to take a few minutes for me to weed out all of these little bits. So that took a little while, but I think I've got enough of this to die cut out some butterflies. And now I have a nice little flotilla of butterflies. I don't know what the collective noun for butterflies is. They could flutter up my card like this. So I think I'll glue those down. I've got a card blank here. I'm going to put glue on the back of these. This is high-tack glue, and that will help the butterflies stay in position while the adhesive dries. I will, I think, have to put something heavy on these to get it all to stay flat. I'll just snip off the overhang. Actually, I don't think I'm going to have to put anything heavy on that. I think that is fine as it is. So again, all that needs really is a sentiment, and you could always add a few enamel dots or nouveau drops or something in the gaps if you wanted. For card number 8, I'm going to make a shaker. I mentioned shakers when I did the first card, but I thought I'd do one for you. So I've got a piece of smooth white card here, and I'm going to cut an aperture in it with this butterfly. And I'm going to use this frame that I cut and add it around the aperture, because it should be the right size, because that hole in the frame was cut with the same butterfly. So now my aperture's got a nice frame around the outside. I need to put some acetate behind my aperture to keep the bits in the shaker, and to stick the acetate to the back I'm going to use this tape runner. It's just quite easy to manipulate around the shape. Chop off the excess. And around the back of the butterfly I shall put some foam tape. It's easier to manipulate around corners if you take the release paper off like this, and I'll do that a little bit at a time so I don't get stuck to it. I want to make sure I make the ends meet. The foam tape that I've got at the moment is quite shallow, so I'm not going to be able to put any chunky bits in this shaker. I could double up, put one layer of foam tape on top of another, but that's a bit fiddly for today. I don't want this video to be too long. I will cover the back more or less in more foam tape just to support everything. As a general rule, I like to take the release paper off before I put my shaker bits in, because invariably as I take the release paper off I will accidentally shake everything everywhere by getting my fingers stuck where I don't want them. So I do find it easier to take the release paper off before I add my shaker elements. As I've got a very shallow shaker window, I'm just going to put glitter in this. So that was some biodegradable gold glitter, and this is some Cosmic Shimmer Glitter Blitz that I picked up from a charity shop. Now I'm going to put my card blank on the back, hopefully the right way around. I'll tidy up the edge there, but there we have a little shaker, and I think I'd be tempted to put my sentiment there, to put a little bit of something extra in the window. And I've just had a thought, an extra thought. I'm going to take that frame and stick it in there. Then that'll give me something extra interesting in my frame with the glitter behind it. And I'll put the sentiment somewhere else. So I've used all my frames now. For card number 9, I'm going to do some stitching. And I've got my pokey foam here, a piece of card and a butterfly that I have die cut out, and I'm going to use as a template. I shall draw a pencil line around it, because I'm going to poke some holes and then do some stitching. I'm going to start here at this point so that my stitching comes to a nice point here, and I'll do the same with this one. And then I'm going to pierce holes along that pencil line every 5mm roughly. I should have raised that pencil line, not that it really matters because I'm going to stitch over it, but just in case any pokes out. After my 10 ways with twine video that I did, I think it was back in October, I treated myself to some pastel embroidery thread. I've got this lovely teal minty green thread, which is just beautiful. So I'm going to use that. I'm going to secure the loose end down there with a bit of washi and just do a running stitch all the way from one end to the other. So I've gone all the way round. I'm going to go back again now. So there we go, I've stitched my butterfly. I think I forgot to say that I split my thread in half. This is 6-strand embroidery thread, so I used 3 strands to do my stitching. Now I want to add a die cut into that. So I'm going to take the next size down and cut from this bit of embossed card. I think I did this with Luscious powders and an embossing folder. And I'm going to stick this down with high tack glue again, because it's quite a lumpy, bumpy bit of card, this high-tack glue will just help it stay in place while it dries. I'll press that down with a bit of non-stick paper and chop off the excess. And I was wondering about something bold. This is nice and coppery, this paper. I will pop this up on foam tape just for a bit of dimension. I've trimmed this down ever such a tiny amount just so that it can sit on a card blank with a bit of a border. So again, all that needs now is a sentiment and maybe some copper drops or something dotted around. I'm not sure, but we'll see when I come to build the final cards. For my last card, card number 10, although we might actually end up with more cards than 10, I think, I want to do some layering. So I've chosen this pink, subtly patterned piece of paper for my big butterfly. I'm going to cut out the next size from vellum. Then this next size I'm going to do from this delicate blue, then another one from vellum, and then a final one from gold. And once I've done that, I shall be back. Right, so I've got a card blank. There's my big pink one, then a vellum one, then a blue one, then another vellum one, go right way up, and then a teeny tiny gold one. I like that the way it is. I'm tempted to try and do a bit of stamping or heat embossing or what have you, but I think that would just be a little bit too much. I know I haven't used the butterfly bodies yet, but I will use them on some of the cards. I think I'm going to stick that down like that. With the vellum, I'll put a little bit of glue just in the centre there. That will hold it down sufficiently once the glue is dried, but it won't be visible because it will be hidden by the next layer. And again, just a little bit in the middle. I will put glue all over the back of the gold one because I think it'll just need a little bit of extra anchoring. And I can quickly wipe off any gluey smears. So that is very simple, but I think it's quite impactful. You could definitely, as I say, jazz it up. You could maybe run some of the coloured pieces through an embossing folder to give them some dimension and texture. You could maybe heat emboss in gold, stamp something on the vellum and heat emboss, as I say, in gold. That would look lovely. I quite like this one the way it is. It wouldn't count as a clean card because there's not enough white space. So if you wanted more white space around your butterfly, you just use a bigger card. But there we have 10 partially made cards created using that single die set. What I'm going to do now is toddle off and turn these into finished cards, and then I'll come back and show you what I've made. So I'll see you in a tick. Right, I'm back and I have created not 10 but 14 cards for you. This is card number 1, the one I made with my DIY aperture dies. All I did with this was add a gold foiled branch onto the top of my butterflies. So the butterflies become the background. I added a gold foiled sending love sentiment over the top there and some morning dew Nouveau drops, which have dried clear. These foiled sentiments are from Wow, they're their fab foilers, I think they're called, and I foiled them with Peruvian gold foil. I am going to do a foiling video in the new year, so if you're interested in watching that, then do subscribe and ring the notification bell. So for card number 2, or rather cards number 2, 2A and 2B, I've got my foam shapes and my DIY chipboard. With this one, very simply, I added a rose gold foiled, thanks for everything, and some pale gold Nouveau drops, just dotted them around to continue that flow like that. And for this one, I took the die that I cut the gold branch from, and I used it to emboss the pattern on the background. I then put the butterfly on top, added a silver thank you and some white blizzard glitter Nuvo drops. Cards 3A and 3B are the DIY embossing folder card. So this was the one that I embossed, and I took the blended butterfly that I did as part of the stenciling card, ran that through an embossing folder with a swirly whirly pattern, and then sanded off the colour from the raised part of the pattern, added a body and a congratulations, again foiled with Peruvian gold. And for this one, this is the one where I stuck the butterflies on to make the embossing folder. I simply die cut a butterfly from blue painty card, again ran that through an embossing folder and then used gold gilding wax over it to highlight and add some shimmer and shine to the texture. I gave it a butterfly body that I used gilding wax on again, a hay there, and I dotted around some white Nuvo drops on that one. This is card number 4, the DIY stamp card. I just cut some butterfly bodies from silver foil cardstock, stuck those on and added a silver foiled Feel Better Soon. I did die cut the panel down a little bit with a stitched rectangle die, just to bring in a little bit more detail around the edge, add a little bit of extra texture. This is card number 5, the one I made with the stencil, the DIY stencil, so the butterfly is completely flat on the panel. With this one, again, I die cut it with a stitched rectangle die just to add a bit of texture around the outside. I added a butterfly body cut from pearlized white cardstock and a gold foiled Sending Love. And then I went around the outside with white Nuvo drops. And my hope was that as they dried, they would absorb some of the colour from the ink and tint that colour, and they did. So the ones on the red went pink, and then we got orange, yellow, green, blue and violet, and back to red again. And I love the way that turned out. Sometimes you don't want your white Nuvo drops tinting, but sometimes you do. It's definitely something that you can embrace if you want to, and I think it works well on this. So that's 5A, and here are another 2. So we've got 5A, let's call the embossing folder card 5B, 5C and 5D. So this was the bit of the blendy panel that I stenciled through and then filled up. I mounted this panel that I'd cut again with a stitched rectangle die, mounted it up on foam to give it a little bit of a lift, added a smaller gold glitter cardstock butterfly, a white butterfly body and a happy birthday across there. Similar to this one, this was the one where I put the butterfly on and then blended out from the butterfly. I put the happy birthday up here though because there's plenty of empty space up there for that. I think these would make really great kids cards. Here we have card number 6, the DIY frames card, and all I did with this one was add a gold foiled happy birthday to you there. I didn't think it needed anything else at all. For card number 7, the one I made with the cover plate die, I took some more of that green background and die cut the bodies for the butterflies out of that, and I stuck them on and then went over them with a Nuvo crystal glaze to give them a bit of gloss and a little bit of dimension. And I added, I think again that's rose gold, "We knew you could do it" sentiment. For card number 8, we've got our shaker card. For the sentiment, I added a "Have a Great Day" foiled in Peruvian gold on a bit of foam down in the corner there. And then I added some gold glitter cardstock circles to create a sense of flow, to add to the direction of the butterfly. For card number 9, the stitching card, I added a green body to my butterfly and a rose gold good luck down here. It's quite similar to this coppery colour shimmer spray paper. And finally, for card number 10, my layering card, I added a gold body to the gold butterfly in the middle, and then I got out some of my tiny gold foiled circles from my little pot of circles and added them to the pink and the blue butterfly. And I think that just leveled it up a little bit. And there you go, that's 14 cards made using one die set. As I said earlier, you don't have to have butterflies even. You can create these kinds of cards using any kind of nesting shape dies that you might have. You could try it with circles, with hexagons, with flowers. So I hope this video has given you a whole bunch of ideas that you can use in your own card making. If it has, do let me know in the comments, and also I'd love to know which one of the cards or techniques you'd like to have a go at. And if you'd like to see more from me, do subscribe, ring the notification bell, and I will see you back here tomorrow for day 22 of Die Cut December 2024. Thanks so much for watching. Bye for now.